I think we finally have the technology figured out, which is great. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Sherry Meyer, and I'm the Dean of the College of Arts and Letters, and I'm just thrilled to welcome you here today on behalf of this amazing exhibition that you're going to be hearing a little more about. I'm going to start today by sharing something that I hope will not make those of you with whom I work feel that I'm totally crazy, but, you know, a little bit. It'll fit in, I promise. So, one of my most vivid childhood memories is highly realistic in its setting. So I'm in the front yard of my aunt's house in a suburb of Rochester, New York. And the people who are present are people I recognize. They're my cousins. I can even tell you, I won't go into detail, what they're wearing. So all of this is very realistic, but the action is not. So even as I know rationally that this memory is what we would think of as false, to this day, I carry the strongest sense that at some point, I took off and flew. I swear it feels as real as the rest of the memory of my cousins and so on and so forth. So, like the literature that has come to be known as magical realism, this powerful memory has both elements held concurrently, both the magical and the real. So as I viewed Won Ju's work, breathtaking exhibition, I was struck by the ways in which she has captured what I am trying awkwardly to describe. She makes visible what Freud describes as dream work, composites that select and rearrange the concrete elements of our daily lives into experiences that are strangely familiar. Now, while some of the found objects and architectural shapes are recognizable in their discrete forms, the compositions and their projections immerse you in a unique and strangely familiar experience. So as I preview the exhibition, including the film work that foregrounds the relationship between Proust and Won Ju's art, I was reminded of another textual experience. Again, for those of you who don't know me, my background is not art, it's literature, so that's where this is coming from, all right? So I was in a small class that was actually studying James Joyce's Finnegan's Wake. How many of you are familiar? Doug's nodding here. Okay. It's a very unique text. Each class, our professor would come in literally carrying like dozens of scholarly books as we would try to parse out each word and phrase, right? Trying to get to the meaning of the text. But even as we worked so hard to decode that text, we were missing the power of it. It wasn't until we read the book aloud, letting the oral qualities of the wake wash over us, that it began to mean something. Similarly, while each element of the installation, exhibition, and film is fascinating in its own way, it is that interplay of elements that the power of your work can be seen. So, as you can tell, I hope, Won Ju's exhibition lends itself to a variety of discussions and experiences. Maybe you too flew in an early memory, as it explores the interstices, the spaces between and among different materials and different art forms, film, architecture, art, literature. So I therefore strongly encourage faculty, staff, students, community members to come to this space, experience this work, and then talk about it. So in closing, let me thank Won Ju Lim for her artistry and her collaboration, the lenders of this work for their generosity in sharing it, and the community and campus for supporting this exhibition. I welcome you all and encourage you to join us after this for a reception in the library gallery. Thank you all. Kelly, I think you're next.
Thank you, Sherry. That was wonderful. For those of you that don't know me, I am Kelly Lindner, the curator of the University Galleries, and I am so excited to be able to introduce Won Ju this evening. Won Ju and I began our exhibition project about 2 years ago, actually more than that. And it was through an introduction by curator Cassandra Koblenz, who was then at the Orange County Museum of Art. And initially, we were trying to think about an exhibition that just included a piece she had been working on for another institution and bringing it here. Then the pandemic happened. So, as you might have thought, we decided to postpone the exhibition for a year. Now, when you give an artist more time and a curator more time, the project is destined to change, which is what happened to us. We went from just a single project to really thinking about a full 15-year survey of her work, and Won Ju completed 2 new pieces for our exhibition. So we are very proud to be able to premiere 2 new works. In addition to that, what I'm really excited for everyone to see is, as Dean Meyer was explaining, is sort of the combination of all the different materiality, media, investigations that Won Ju brings to her work. A lot of these come from architecture, they come from film, they come from science fiction backgrounds. It's just an array of things. So you might be looking at this work and not necessarily understand what the context will be, but at some point, it's going to spark something that you have already experienced before. And that is the power of her work. It's sort of in each viewer's own mind, it's going to bring you memories, it's going to bring you a familiar experience, and then you're going to wonder, wait, what is this made of, and why am I standing outside of the city above it? So it's an exhibition that you definitely will want to spend time with. So just a quick bio here. Won Ju's work has been exhibited widely in the United States and internationally, including the San Jose Museum of Art, the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, the St. Louis Art Museum, the Hood Museum of Art at Dartmouth College, the Museum of Contemporary Art Los Angeles, the Hammer Museum, Museum of Art in Seoul, the Olin Center for Contemporary Art Beijing, the Museum der Moderne in Salzburg, and I could go on, there are more. And her biennial exhibitions include the International Incheon Women's Artist Biennial in South Korea, the Architecture, Art, and Landscape Biennial of the Canaries, the Gwangju Biennial in South Korea, Snapshot New Art from Los Angeles at the Hammer Museum, and the Munster Sculpture Biennial in Germany. So she has, I feel very lucky that she has come to Sacramento after being all these amazing places. Lim was born in Gwangju, South Korea. She immigrated to the United States with her family as a young child. She was awarded a BS from Woodbury University, Burbank, and her MFA from the Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. She currently lives and works in Los Angeles. So I want to thank the artists for being an incredible collaborator on this exhibition. Your attention to detail and deep understanding of your own work is a curator's dream. I also want to thank our gallery staff, Mustafa Shaheen and Ben Hunt, in helping to realize this exhibition, which is always a team effort, and in this case was a lot of logistics. And thank you to our many student attendants who each day get to spend time sitting in a magical room and talking to visitors about this work. I also want to extend my gratitude to curatorial assistant Julie Crum, who became an integral partner in the exhibition design and assisted Won Ju with unpacking and setting up the large-scale installation. Let me know when you need that recommendation for grad school. So please join us after the talk in the library gallery if you haven't already seen the exhibition, and we will also have some food and beverages for you. Please join me in welcoming Won Ju Lim.
Thank you so much for that great introduction. And thank you, Dean, for your introduction and for sharing your childhood memory. I think this is very special. And so, but I really want to extend my gratitude towards an amazing curator. As Kelly has said, we worked on this for 2 years, yes, a little bit more than 2 years. But I've been working on this project for a little bit over 3 years. And I met Kelly, and we started talking. I won't go into a whole lot of details, but this is what a fabulous curator she is. In the 2 years, we had agreed at some point that there's going to be 2 new large projects. One was to be this film that's in this that's part of this exhibition, and the other one is the huge installation that's in the first gallery. And both of them were very difficult in different ways. So the first one, the installation, I changed my mind on a large-scale installation at least twice. So, like 9 months go by, and Kelly's like, what have you been doing? And you want to see? I'm like, I've been doing this and this. And then a few more months later, yeah, I threw that one away. I'm doing this, right? So it was about a year ago, I think, when I started kind of when this started kind of like coming together, at least in my mind, and starting about 9 months ago, I started really working on this. But the whole time, Kelly trusted me. She did not give me a hard time. She did not push me. She really, really trusted me. So this is really amazing. And the film, I think it was, maybe I sent you the high resolution file like the morning before of the first day. I think it was something like that. It really wasn't done. So that took a really long time because I was working with other, like a crew of people. And so anyway, thank you so much, Kelly. And I also want to thank my friends that are here. And some of you drove here from Los Angeles today, like starting early this morning. So thank you so much. I mean, I'm so lucky to have you guys here. Also, to my best friend, thank you for the last 2-3 years and maybe 10 or more years for just being by my side, right, and helping me go through this, kind of obsession that I have in my studio. So thank you for that, and of course Ben and Julie and Mustafa, who was, I still thank Mustafa. This group of people, that's part of the gallery that's really like helped me so much. And Kelly and Ben, I walked in this morning. I was like, wow, this is a great show. I really, because there was, it's a, survey show. So some of the works, a lot of the works I haven't seen for over 10 years. And to see this works together and to kind of have a new iteration and then to kind of look at the work in different contexts, it makes me fall in love with the work all over again. So you guys did that. Anyway, thank you so much. All right, enough thank yous. All right, so artist presentations is it's a kind of, I hate the word presentation, right? And so for me to kind of open myself up and show you some of the things that I just recently finished, which is so dear, and it's messy in there, right? When large work that I've been working on for many years, I've come to a conclusion, I have to talk about it, and then also to share with you the works that I've done in the past. And this is a very kind of a difficult thing, at least it is for me. So I also kind of think of it as like, well, I have, I don't know how many people, around 60, 70 people here that I'm inviting all of you guys to my house, right? And you're going through my dirty laundry and my sock drawer and my, whatever collection. So I hope that this house is not a completely sealed one, or one that only has like one entrance in the front door or back door, something like that. I hope this house is a porous one where you could fly in through the windows and you could go in through the cracks and you go out of the chimney. And this is to say, like, I hope that you get something different out of the work and my practice than the way I'm talking about my work. This is my home. And so, okay, here we go. As Kelly said, my background is in architecture, so I wanted to be an architect, and within a year of working in architecture firm, I just knew that this was not for me. I was not interested in the practice, but architecture, the things that I love about architecture, the theoretical, the experimental, the speculative, all these aspects of architecture, I hope is in my work. At least I try to kind of free that up. This relationship between architecture and art is one that I hope is like fluid and free. This is titled Proustian Bedroom. As you can see, it was installed twice. In 1995 was when I first completed this piece. And it was during my graduate study days at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena. I was there maybe the first 3 months. I'm gonna be an artist. I don't want architecture anymore. I'm gonna be an artist, and I'm an artist paint. So that's what I started doing. And I was making such god-awful paintings. And one of my advisors said, "What are you doing? Why don't you do what you want to do, what you know how to do that you could kind of extend on?" And so I was like, well, okay, what do I know how to do? I know how to make drawings of buildings. I know how to do elevations. I know how to make floor plans. I'm really good at like thinking about things spatially. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my bedroom and measure all the objects in my bedroom, and I'm going to transplant it into my studio, the graduate studio at the time, and do 4 elevation drawings and 1 floor plan drawing. And that's what I did. And so, just quickly, So what I did was I measured the bedroom at the time that I'm living, and I treated the negative space on the walls and positive space on the floor. And there you can see, and kind of like, not the little objects, but the main ones, like the door, the windows, the bed, the desk, and so on. And I go back and back and back to all the bedrooms that I ever slept in. And after about third or fourth layers, the first layer starts disappearing, or aspects of it, to a point where and I rubbed it. I used dry pasta and I rubbed it on the walls, and so all the finger marks are there, all the traces of the absence of the artist's marks are there, and it became, in a way, 4-5 paintings. But you enter, and you could discover little areas like this in layers and layers, and so on, right? So now, Proustian bedroom. Around this time, maybe at the end of it, it took me many months to complete this piece. I didn't discover Proust. Proust came to me, right? Somebody recommended. I was aware of Proust and this kind of thing about memory that he talks about and stuff, but this is when I started reading Proust, and it was like this door opened. It's like, this is what I've been doing. This is what I've been talking about or thinking about. I just didn't have the vocabulary and the words about involuntary memory and so on, right? And so, okay. And so this is the first completed work, and it is one that is an ongoing one. So if there's another chance to install this, I will do it again. Hopefully 15 years from now, 25 years from now, maybe until I'm dead, until I can no longer remember, or whatever, until I don't have a bedroom anymore. So you saw a series of superimposed drawings and from the iteration of 2007, and this is the one from 1995. As you can see, it's really pixelated and poor quality and stuff. Okay, so I want to go through, I have a lot of influences, right? I studied with amazing artists, and some of whom I still keep in touch with. Some of them are really great friends. But I would say, especially in relationship to some of my bigger installation, and especially in relationship to the new huge installation in Gallery 1, I would say that these are my main influences. I also teach, and I talk about minimalism all the time. Anyway, this is a piece by Alban Lucier.
I am sitting in a room.
Okay. Some of you might be familiar with this. I'm gonna just play maybe the first.
I am recording the sound of my speaking voice, and I am going to play it back into the room again and again until the resonant frequencies of the room reinforce themselves, so that any semblance of my speech, with perhaps the exception of rhythm, is destroyed. What you will hear then are the natural resonant frequencies of the room, articulated by speech. I regard this activity not so much as a demonstration of a physical fact, but more as a way to smooth out any irregularities my speech might have.
Okay.
I am sitting in a room
So
different from the one you are in
I'm
now.
gonna skip over this a little bit.
I
Just to
again and
he
again
said, right? He's telling you
until
what,
the
that's the piece
resonant
that
frequencies of the room
telling you what he is
reinforce
doing.
themselves,
Recording over recording over recording.
so that any semblance of my speech,
Generation 3,
with
after 7,
perhaps the exception
20,
of
25.
rhythm,
I don't know if I could.
is destroyed.
Okay. This is many generations, right? A recording of a recording. So basically what you're hearing is, of course, speech, but also the frequency of the room that has been recorded over and over. just for the sake of time. Okay, so I really kind of, when I first heard this piece, and when somebody said, "Oh, you have to look up this artist," and I looked into his work and stuff, did I want to be a sound artist? Not at all, right? Not at all. But I was so attracted to it, and there is this kind of an influence, maybe that was like before I even knew anything about his work, right? I was there in in my prior work before I knew about it, was already there. This kind of Lucier sensibility, right, was already in the work. And this is what I would like to kind of like, especially the students here, about tell you about influence, right? It's never direct. I hope it's never direct, right? Influence is something that is in you already, right? That when you hear something or experience something, it touches something that was already in you. And it's never something that you just realize right away. Sometimes it takes many, many, many years. And that's what I was influenced by. And it is never something that looks like something. It's never a copy of something. You have to, it's something that you become a great thief, right? And as an artist, you have to be a great thief, and you have to take it, you steal it, and you have to make it your own. And that's the part. You never borrow it, you never copy it. You have to really, really steal it and make it your own. So, these are a few of my influences. Minimalism is a huge one. So it was in my second year when I was at Art Center. Sam Durant and Liz Larner were teaching this class on minimalism and earthwork. And so we did a lot of readings, and then we made many, many field trips. It was second or third field trip. We went to Marfa in Texas, where there's a huge foundation, two foundations, Judd Foundation, and then the Chinati Foundation. And I won't get too into, like, if you're interested, you could ask me later. But this was mid to late 90s, 96 or 7. And I went there, and this particular work, but other works of Judd. Studying architecture, I was very much aware of minimalism. I already did the reading in the class, but also when I was an undergrad. And it was just kind of an intellectual attraction. But when I went and when I experienced the 100 untitled works in mill aluminum, it just like changed everything. And here is another documentation of it. When you experience this piece, when you experience it in the morning, and then when you experience it at 5 or 6 p.m. when the sun is setting, it's a completely different experience. It's not, and that part's kind of obvious, right? He opened the buildings, I was already there, and he put in the windows, like almost floor to ceiling windows to let the light in. But it's not just that. It's the time of the year. Is it winter? How chilly it is outside? More than that, it is, are you going there with just your lover? Or are you going there with a group of students of 12? This changes all of your experience, right? Is your friend over here and you over here? Or are they over there and you are over here? What kind of postures are you making in relationship to your friend who's also experienced? There's so many factors. I must have visited this piece at least 7 times, at least, because every time I teach, every time I get a chance to do a field trip, when I'm teaching sculpture, I do it. I mean, because it changed my life, I want that to happen with students too. And so, and it's only years and years later, I realized, oh, why was I so into this? I was really into building a very specific subject-object relationship. You could say my work has, you could see, maybe, hopefully you don't see it directly, there's, influence of minimalism in my work, but it's, in my opinion, it's not so much in the aesthetic quality or the formal quality. I hope it's in the way I create a very specific subject-object relationship. That is to say, a navigating subject and the art object. And so, let's see, what did I write? I'm just totally going off script here. The navigating viewer is caught in a play of light and shadow, reflection and refraction, mass and void, and most importantly, it implicates the body of the viewer. So I'm just kind of, like the next few images, I'm just going to point out some things that I think is really kind of present in my work that years later I realized, That's what that was. The viewer is caught in an irreconcilable difference between what their mind is telling them. It's this big. Oh, it is contained in this way. Oh, it is transparent. And then what their body is experiencing. These are not in complete, there's a misalignment that's happening, and it's constantly shifting. They might need a little bit, and then they just go like this, right? And so there's always this kind of it's hard to reconcile what is happening in front of you. This for me is very important. An interior that is active, this beautiful jut piece, right? So it's, installed right in front of these windows. Imagine what could happen, right, throughout the duration of the exhibition, and also throughout the difference between 12 noon and 4 p.m., so on. Another piece I want to point out is by Robert Morris, and this is to say, these are 3 exactly the same dimension, same everything, depending on where you are staying, depending on what kind of bodily experience you have with the art object, they look and feel different. And it's constantly changing. This is the way in which a simple L form, right, in space, really 90 degrees, maybe painted white, or I'm not sure what the materials are, right? This is what could activate your relationship to the artwork and your body. And there's a specific subject-object relationship that we talked about. So here's a piece by the same artist, and here's the same piece installed in a different context. That context is everything. And these kind of qualities, I hope you could see in my work. I'm going to show you documentations of kind of larger installation work in a few minutes. So context is everything. And to create an extension of the frame, that the work does not stop here, right? That the work goes out and outside of this room, outside, maybe perhaps that encompasses the whole building. Perhaps frame also does not have to be spatial, right? Not only is it audio, it could have a residue in the way you remember something, right? So I want to build an experience where the frame, the art does not stop. It echoes and kind of, and builds a residue. And so this is a piece by Carl Andre, and the short story, I'm going to give you just a brief story, I'm sure it's a lot longer, but Conrad Fisher, who had a gallery at this time in the late 60s, wanted to invite Carl Andre to do a piece in his gallery. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm remembering this right. And so he, instead of transporting the work from New York to Dusseldorf, he invited the artist. He flew in the artist and not the artwork. And so Carl Andre made this piece that it is on the floor, and you're supposed to walk on it, and it's the corridor between the gallery and the entrance of the gallery that's up the street. So the viewers are forced to walk into this thing, and so sculpture as a place. Sculpture as a place is so important. It's not just this kind of formal spatial and three-dimensional object that just merely occupies a gallery space. How do I create something where it could be a place? And a very specific place is something that I think about a lot. And one more thing that I want to, that the work is self-reflexive, and hopefully I could, okay. So this is a piece by Robert Morris. The box with the sound of its own making. And exactly that. I think it's like something like 2.5, 3 hours recording of the making of this very small wooden box. And he put the speaker, he recorded it, and then he put the speaker inside of the box to hear the box of its own making. That the work is self-reflexive. When I look at my work, do the lines know that they're lines? I ask myself this all the time, right? Does the cardboard, foam cardboard, whatever, styrene, does the styrene know that it's a styrene? Or does it think it's a church and only it's a church? Do the shadows know that they are shadows? Well, how do I make it so that the shadows know that they're shadows? These are the things I think about a lot. And it doesn't have to be like some fabulous, material. It could be something super, and I don't mean dumb in the pejorative way. Dumb isn't like not something that's not so loud. That does not. It could be very kind of like in a quiet way that it kind of calls on itself. And so, anyway, okay. So Baroque architecture is a huge influence of mine. I'm going to quickly go over. Obviously, I'm creating a Baroque sensibility, and I'm not making Baroque interior or a cathedral of any kind, right? But these are the kind of like elements or qualities of the Baroque that I want to continue into my artwork. It's how do I create a continuity with things that would normally be discontinuous? How do I create an installation or even sculpture that has multi-perspectivalism, that is to say, multiple vanishing points. You could look into this area, and you get sucked into this area, and that has like one center. And then here's another kind of model or something like that that has another center, and so on. Cavernous interiors within interiors. How do I create also scale shift? How do I create something where it becomes a trompe l'oeil? It fools the eye in a certain way, but also it's, in some other aspect of it, it's a concrete, real object in front of you. And it starts shifting constantly back and forth between fooling you and not fooling you, and so on. Creating excess. How do I create something where you have to look upward, and so on? So these are the things that I want to create in the work. So I'm going to quickly go over some of these things that I was thinking about when I was making this piece, as a documentation of the work a few months ago in my studio. I wanted to create this kind of, I didn't want to illustrate anything in the book. I didn't want it to be like to tell a story, and then this happened, and then, Madame Swan did this. I don't want it to be that kind of narrative. I wanted to create some kind of a Proustian sensibility. How do I create a world of dream, a world of magic, and so on? How do I retell the story? How do I retell the story that Proust was retelling in the book when he was remembering the first time he got a magic lantern? Not in his way, but my way, right? My memory of his memory of a memory of a memory of a memory. Right around the turn of 19th to 20th century, there are three very important pivotal developments in different disciplines that happen. I think that it's really, really important in our culture, in a culture of visuality, and then me, right? That is very, very important to me, and that is the birth of cinema, incredibly important, right around 1900, right? And then there is Eisenstein's theory of relativity. It's everything. Not that I know anything about physics of any kind, right? But that somehow, I am, the kind of like a non-direct lineage of this kind of discoveries that were made in physics at this time. And then also, of course, as you mentioned, Freud's interpretation of dreams was published right around 1900. And so Proust then was a product, and then his first volume, Swan's Way, was published in 1913. So while he was writing, his first volume, this was the time that he was exposed to, at least in the top of this upper middle class, this kind of a certain kind of community in Paris, right? I'm sure there were a lot of talk about moving image and so on. And so he is a product or a symptom of changes that happened back then, and his work is it reflects a critical moment in Western history, and his world is one where time and space expand and contract and superimposes, and desire in the Proustian world is never fulfilled. It is only temporarily revealed in a person, in a thing, or a place. So I'm gonna be a little bit quick. This is, I made an inventory of objects. Some objects I found. A lot of the objects, a combination of finding and then making, doing something to it. How do I, when you're, at least when I was a kid, I would just look at a bowl that my mom would use in the kitchen or something like that, right? That wasn't a bowl to me. That was a little like magical world, right? Where I could project and fantasize. I don't do that anymore. These are the kind of things that were like so amazing to me. And dollhouse or an architectural model that's only this big, right? That's supposed to stand in for something much grander is something that you could use to fantasize. Even like this one over here is something that is a complete fabrication. That is to say, all the leftovers from making a piece like this, I kind of put it into a box, all the little, squares and things that I don't use, and then this is what happens, right? And this is somehow a 3D articulation of a memory. All the things that were like left over here and here and here that kind of come together. That is not logical, all right? But it's nevertheless meaningful. And I built an inventory. Again, not knowing where do these objects go. And at some point I was like, yes, of course I have to, build this thing and certain objects come together, but which ones go together? Even at the point of like completely making, I didn't want to conclude in this way. And then I started making, this one goes with this one. Let's do I'll kind of point, maybe it's not here. Let's do an area where there are like 3 pyramids, and one that's super high and the other one's medium and this is low. How do I create different heights? And now throwing away what they look like or what they stand for, how do I kind of approach it only formally? How do I make something where there's like transparent areas and translucent areas and then it's blocked off by something super dark and black that creates a shadow and all these different things? How do I create areas where something is undeniably recognizable, right? Everybody's seen this kind of like, this kind of a glass vase, right? But then next to it, how do I create something that is like somewhat familiar, but it's like kind of done in a different way? And so all this idea of the way I was talking about context, how do I keep shifting context, right? So that I could create a world that is both familiar and new or magical at the same time. I'm going to quickly go over the titles of the work that you're going to see, or if you haven't seen it already. So this is comprised of 12 sculptures. Each table is one sculpture. And there are 12 sculptures that come together to make one piece. So they could, potentially be just, the first and fourth one together, or the first 5 together, and so on. So they could be separated, but then within one, they cannot be separated. This one has to be shown with this one. This is one piece. So that sense of complexity of the Bois de Bouillon, this is sculpture 1, which you made in an artificial place. And in the zoological and mythological sense of the word, the 4th sculpture is titled A Garden. 5th one, I captured again this year as I crossed it on my way to Trianon on one of those mornings early in November. What number is this, 6 or 7? When in Paris, if we stay indoors, 7, being so near and yet prevented from witnessing the transformation scene of autumn. Number 11 which is drawing so rapidly to a close without our assistance. We feel a regret for the fallen leaves that become a fever. That's the final one. And there's one more clause after that is not going to be made. So there. This piece is titled California Dreamin'. It's comprised of hundreds of architectural models based on the floor plans of do-it-yourself house catalogs, and it's a vast assemblage of modular units that interact with 3 video projections as one piece. Perception, memory, imagination, and fantasy are conflated within this installation through the projection of characteristic images of Los Angeles onto the foam core board and plexiglass surfaces of the sculpture, which serve to alternately reflect, refract, and absorb light. So this is a documentation at the San Jose Museum from a few years ago. Oh, this is the same one, sorry. This is one from 2002. So the first time it was shown was in Berlin at Max Hessler in 2002, and a completely different context spatially. This is like, so this is up, the highest part is around my height, and then so you could imagine this is around 12 or 14 feet or something. You could imagine how high this is, right? So in this context, the work looked very, very different. In terms of content, I was interested in the name of California, which originates from this fantasy novel, Las Surges de Esplandian, The Adventures of the Esplandian, written by a Spanish author, Garcia Rodriguez de Montalvo. The state of California was named after the paradisical island made of gold, describing the novel by its ruler, Queen Calafia. Initiated by the mythical place imagined by the author, European maps were commonly drawn in the state, with the state of California detached from northern continental plate up until the 19th century, is what I learned. And this becomes really interesting, right? The state that we live in is this, really kind of based off of a place that actually initially is known, or has been talked about, that is mythical place. What I also found really interesting is that there's all this kind of like more recent, I don't know how long, maybe I'm sure many, many decades, of there being a big earthquake with California being detached away from the continental plate, and these two things that most likely probably will happen, and the fantasy story of the Spanish author, they kind of collide, and this is something that I'm really interested in. Okay, the same piece in Germany, Krefeld House, Langenhaus Esther. Really small space. I want to say the height is probably lower than this, the ceiling, and it's about an eighth of this. It's really, really small, and you could barely walk around the piece. And I really, really enjoyed installing this and seeing this work here. And then a much bigger, space in Salamanca, and then at the Schön Kunsthalle in Frankfurt. And so there were many, and there were other ones too. So every time I installed a piece, and my partner was just saying when he saw the piece, wow, this piece looks really different today, speaking of the new installation, because he saw it for many, many, many months in my studio. And so creating a different context in which you could understand the work in a slightly different way is something also that's very interesting for me. 20 seconds of silence was shown at the Ullin Center of Contemporary Art. They invited me in 2006 to do a piece when they just opened, to make a piece for their 2008 Olympics exhibition. So in 2007, I went to Beijing to I didn't know what I was making. I wanted to leave it completely open. I wanted to experience Beijing. It was obviously the first time for me, and went there. And this was the state of Beijing at this time. It was just before, it's like the whole city was going through all these changes. There were so many new buildings. Most of them were not completed in 2007. The goal was to have it done by the Olympic time in 2008. So this is about a year before. So there was this kind of like urgency to have all the buildings done. But what I really thought was like so amazing about this time was the whole city was in flux, right? There's this like heading towards the future, but still the past is there. And so, a building like this, you could see on the street, and maybe 2 blocks later, you'll see a small alleyway, where the residue of the past is still there. Here it is, it's obviously a city and a country with lots of problems. It's got like a deep history not without political, economical, environmental problems. But if I look at it from an aesthetic point of view, the city had a lot to offer. So from something like that, and then the next, 10 minutes walk later or something, you will run into a huge, huge shopping mall with this, like Dior storefront. And the front was designed by Olafur Eliasson. And there were like a lot of contemporary artists showing at the time, but still you'll see this kind of industrial kind of buildings that is actually have been shut off, or not. I'm not sure if they stopped or if it was already kind of like deserted. And then you'll see, that's so weird. This is a condo area, humongous, large condo area. It's almost a city on its own, one part of Beijing, and it's by Stephen Ho. And then this is this TV station building by OMA, Rem Koolhaas. At the time, I totally remember this. It's so fascinating. They finished building everything, but there's this one area right there that was not done. And at the entrance of this building is this. And at that time, they were saying that Beijing had the biggest LED screens in the whole world. So my impression of Beijing in 2007, it was a city that was in a state of daydreaming, imagining itself in the future while remembering the past and getting pulled in both directions. So this is what I did. For about a month, I was driven around the city to capture a lot of raw footage, and I really thought that this ring system was kind of brilliant. The way we kind of, so populated. It's just so packed. And so I use this ring system in some way, both conceptually and structurally, and also formally in this new work. Let me show you. 24 seconds of silence. Just, it comprised of many, many sculptures, one piece, and 5 different video projections. 2 projectors are on, I'm not sorry, all 5 of them are on the floor. 2 of them are, there's one right there. It's projecting, it's just kind of evolving. So one of the things that became a huge problem was when we started bringing out the camera. You know, we got stopped a lot. And so we just couldn't, at some point after about, I don't know, 5 days or something, we just couldn't do it. And I thought I'll just have to go back to LA. And then I looked up, there's so many revolving lounges in the city at the time. And so we just used the building as a tripod. So we went up to the top floor where usually the lounge is there. And then we put the camera right at the edge of the table, put a, you know, like a jacket over or something, and just got drunk and had a lot of food and, you know, and like for 2-3 hours and let it just do its thing. And so I took also that and then I repeated it on when I was projecting with this, you know, with the projector that's revolving 360 degrees. I'm going to skip over some stuff. I'll just do another element. I'm not going to go into too much right now because we're almost running out of time, right? Is there are 5 moments in the installation where I took scenes and the cityscape of films that have to do with a city that's in a daydream. And so this is Metropolis by Fritz Lang, and here's my sculptural model of the cityscape from the film, and Dark City, Wizard of Oz, Logan's Run, and Things to Come. I'm going to do this really fast. Also, right around this time, I made another large piece, but the research for this piece happened in 2001. I purchased a house and built my kind of like my only studio in a way on the property. And down the street from where I live now, I've been living there for many, many years, was this pet store. And the pet store was just crazy, and it was just really stinky and dirty, and it was like, I learned that it was specializing in live feed, and I was already very much interested in Baroque, and I got a kind of a big grant to make a very large project, and so I wanted to do something about Northern Eastern Baroque architecture and this pet shop, because I would like kind of, you know, watch this pet shop just get like more and more dilapidated, and there were these like dead birds and so on. And then, but when I stopped like kind of thinking about like what a disturbing, problematic retail store this is, and then I was like, no, let's like think about the way I was kind of going over the elements of Baroque in there. It became really interesting, and so there is a scale shift that's happening in this store. And then there is this narrative space that creates all kinds of different perspectives. There is the trompe-l'oeil images here. There's cavernous interiors within interiors, and it draws the eye upward. And it's creating continuity using discontinuous materials. And then it became just pure sensation. You know, without being judgmental, positive or negative, it just became a pure sensation being in there. I made friends with the owner of the guy, and after many, many attempts, he let me in, and I did a lot of raw footage. And then I went to different northern European cities, like Dresden, St. Petersburg, Vienna, and created this piece. I'm going to do it really, really fast, because I want to spend about 5-10 minutes, just 5 minutes, on Raycraft, and then that will be the and so I'm just gonna go over it. So the projections are again 5, and they're rotating, but they're of both Baroque interiors and of the pet store at the same time. And so parts of this sculpture, this installation is in the exhibition here. Okay. For both the interior of the Baroque Cathedral and of the pet shop, the occupant is suspended and lost. The viewer's body is merely a conduit that all sensation filter and travel through. And there's two ideas of the Baroque, one of history and another of sensation, level each other out without erasing each other, and they coexist as a continuous fantastical space. This is the last big project I want to talk about. This is an exhibition shop from the Yerba Center here in San Francisco. And this show, Ray Craft is Dead, also went to St. Louis Museum. First started in St. Louis Museum, and then it went to Yerba Buena. Susie is here. I thought I saw Susie's eyes today. Our curator for the show is here. And so, quickly, Ray Craft is Dead. This is the house. The Baroque, the pet shop that I was talking about is like down here, about 4 blocks down from this direction. This is my house then and now. This is my studio. This is Ray Craft's house. Ray Craft used to own this whole lot here. And then in the late 70s, he divided in half. So the body of the work is based on the complicated relationship that transpired between myself and the next door neighbor, now deceased Ray Craft, who was once the owner of the property I currently own and was confused in many ways in his elderly state. He started intruding into my space, my property, which led to an outburst of territorial feuds that lasted for 10 years. In 2010, Ray Craft died, and I was like so happy. Then these fights are done, and I have to celebrate by making a series of works. Right? So this is what I made. Let's see. The experience led me to question locus, and then when after I calmed down, I got to thinking like, what was this all about, right? How am I part of this? It's cannot be just about Ray Craft. It's also about me and this kind of dynamic between, at the time probably 90-something white guy who's been living there for 50-some years, and at the time it was like 30-something for a woman that newly just moved into, at the time, a really working class, not anymore, it's been gentrified, but at the time, really working class neighborhood, Latino neighborhood. So I made collages and sculptures, and some of them are part of this exhibition. And the question has to do with like ownership, and do we own the space to which we don't have visible or physical access? And when we are denied of those spaces, what kind of fantasies and anxieties and paranoias do we project onto the spaces? So this is a series of elevation drawings of my house, and pointing at, and there are these things that happen in the house in my absence, such as like dead birds, or like things rotting, mushrooms growing, or some of the other stuff. The mold that's happening in my coffee cup because I left it in my studio for 2 weeks or something like that, right? So, and then here's another piece titled Corner. So this is the model of an interior of my house. And at the St. Louis Art Museum, they let me open the wall to expose that area. But the space between the sculpture and the walls only like about 4 inches. So the same piece at the St. Louis Art Museum, at Yerba Buena Center for Arts, and then here today. I just took this picture today. There are 3 different iterations, same sculpture. One is mirror, the other one, this one can't really see, but I had the museum sand away, so you could see all the exposed layers that happen in that corner. And then this one I said I already said that the structure of that wall of the corner is exposed. So this is Bastard, same series, Ray Craft is Dead. And this is a bastard of a form that I took measurements of my house and then imagined measurements of his house and made this bastard form. The bastard has a butthole that's the only area, you could like kind of look into the inside of the bastard, and you could only see it as, you could kind of go under, you'll see it when you see it, go under, and if you like, kind of, but it's dangerous. But you could see the reflection of it on the mirror, and the mirrors are the footprints of his house and my house. And one more is endoscopy. It takes an anthropomorphic approach to body work and examining the house, viewing it as if it was a body, looking at a floor plan or section from a perverse position, a similar perspective to that of a pathologist, a doctor, or a pornographer. And so that this is, I gave my house an endoscopy. Right? So you could do that. You could ask a plumber to put a snake through the whole pipe, system of your house, and as if and like getting an endoscopy, some of us have gotten this. They're very similar visually, right? Do you think? Anyway, I think that's the last one I have. Thank you. Okay. Oh, we do questions.
Yes, good question.
I'm okay with time, right? Maybe a little bit over.
Yeah, let's do questions for 10 minutes or so. If anyone has some questions, because I think it's a great opportunity. You've got Won Ju up here, and then we'll transition over to the library gallery. And if you have more questions there, I know she'll be available. Anyone have a question they would like to ask?
I don't have a question, but I just want to thank you for the revenge.
But didn't I say you'll be going through my dirty laundry and opening up my soft drawer and stuff, right?
Yes. Out of all of your work, which one has been your most favorite recent one?
What do you mean by favorite? My favorite one, it's really hard. They're all my favorite. No, I just have different relationship to them, all of them in different ways, and I like some of them and hate some of them in different ways. I'm more critical. I think I'm critical of all of them in different ways. I don't know. The favorite one, no, the favorite one is always the last one, and then also always the first one, the Proustian bedroom. Right, because there's so much similarities with the first one and the last one in a lot of ways. Always the last one, right? Because the last one's always changing while the first one remains.